Days before Christmas, let's join together. We can watch the snow fall forever and ever. Eat, drink and be merry. Come along with me. Days before Christmas. The admission's free. Actually, this game probably cost 50 notes when it was new, so that's a lie. Until this video, I'd never played Days Before Christmas, but it's one of those games that always comes up in the discussion about Christmas games, so I thought it was time to rectify that. Days Before Christmas is a 1994 platform game developed by Funcom and originally released exclusively in Australia for the Mega Drive. I thought this was odd at first and assumed it was because the developer or publisher was based in Australia, but nope, it was developed by Funcom, who are based in Norway, and published by Sunsoft, who are based in Japan. The game did get ported to the SNES, where it was finally released in Australia and Europe, but that's it. Apparently Christmas-themed platformers are almost exclusively enjoyed by Australians, so maybe next year we should all send them our many copies of James Bond 2 codenamed Robocod. Anyway, Days Before Christmas lets you play as Santa as you run and jump around colourful stages, collecting presents and using magic to turn enemies into presents. There's also a bizarre cup of tea power-up hidden around the stages that when collected turns Santa into Anti-Claus, which is an invincible opposite version of Santa who attacks enemies with his sack of presents and looks like a Tengu for some reason. It's very weird, and I hope that it was a very specific demand from Sunsoft, who are like, we'll publish this, but only if you get some yokai in there, and this is what Funcom came up with. The overall goal in the game is to stop an evil mouse who has stolen all the presents and cursed them, and by cursed I mean rigged with explosives. Some presents can be opened using magic, which reveals bonuses, the aforementioned explosives, and sometimes enemies, so you've got to be quick on your feet to defeat them and turn them into more presents to give to all the world's children. And you do actually have to give those presents out, because after a handful of stages, you get to fly Santa's sleigh over various locations around the world and drop presents down specific chimneys. The first one of these flying stages takes place in London, which is where I'm from, so that was nice, even though I was a little concerned that the game was signposting specific chimneys to drop presents into, and not just all of them. That would have made more sense as well, because you have a finite amount of presents to drop that you've collected from the stages prior to this, so why not just try and drop as many presents as possible to get the most points? It's all a bit Tory if you ask me, which I guess makes sense seeing as this is happening in London. Listen, I'm allowed to say that, right, because I live here. Anyway, sometimes there's a boss to defeat and even a power-up that lets you cast fire, so there's a little more variety to the proceedings. The main thing about Days Before Christmas though is that it's very easy. You're constantly being furnished with health and extra lives, and none of the platforming and combat is particularly taxing. This appears to have been a big criticism of the game when it originally launched, but I think it's actually kind of perfect for a game like this. You see, if you're opening a new game on Christmas Day and then you get some downtime later on to play it, then I think that game should be easy, as it feeds back into the nice comfy downtime most of us get over Christmas. I don't want to be playing something difficult and stressful when I'm on holiday. I need a game that lets me scoff mouthful of crisps between stages and makes me feel cosy, and this is basically that. It's also got that Euro look to it that a lot of Amiga games have. It's all pillow-shaded artwork with lots of detailed animation, which made me think this was an Amiga game first, but amazingly Funcom never developed an Amiga game. Which I suppose makes sense because this game has a dedicated jump button and doesn't demand you press up to jump like most Amiga games. It's the sort of thing Americans would call Eurojank, but I hate that term, and I think Americans of all people have some nerve calling our games janky when they're entirely responsible for Awesome Possum, which is an abomination for which they should be held entirely accountable for. You can't criticise Zool when you're making bloody Last Action Hero for Genesis, you monsters! But yeah, Days Before Christmas was a nice little surprise. It's a pretty, well-controlling platformer that is low on challenge but extremely comfy, making it a bizarrely perfect game to play over Christmas. I still don't understand why it was only released in Australia though. Merry Christmas, Australia!